control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal, Bedtime Stories From Beyond. I just realized we're not actually on the air yet. Hold on. Now we're on the air. Forgot the light. Oh, man. Must be getting old. I don't know what's going on here, but we had an epic show last night, ladies and gentlemen. If you missed Wednesday's show, please be sure to check it out. We were joined by our good friend and co-founder of Bigfoot Odyssey, Mr. Kerry Arnold, and we had a great talk, had a great chat, got to hear all about his experience and his experiences, his thoughts, his insights, and really was a fantastic show. A lot of fun, just a great experience. So I'm really glad that Kerry was able to make it. We had a lot of people in here, some of his listeners were getting introduced to the portal, so it was really a full house. It was a lot of fun and great show. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. That was last night. I entitled it Paranormal Odyssey. Took me a long time to come up with that title. I just blended them is what I did. So it was a good title. I like that one though. But anyway, hope you guys are doing great. What is it? Thursday. Wow. It's the week is moving by quickly. Tomorrow night, of course, is Friday, so yeah, that'll be another 2-hour show. Wow. You blink and everything's just going on. So hope you guys are doing great. Thanks so much for being here with me. I'm just ready to go. I got some good things pulled up for you, I hope. But I hope you're ready because it's time for bed. All right, everybody, welcome again. BDRP says, I can't wait for you and D-DOS to get together. Oh, yeah, D. That's you, D. I can't wait for it either, brother. I'm anxiously looking forward to that. So when we can make that happen, I'll be plenty happy. So just keep in touch and let me know what your schedule's looking like, and I'll do my best to make that work. I'm really looking forward to it as well. So anyway, this is the Bedtime Stories From Beyond. And, I got a couple of things we could go through here. Let's see, a couple of nights ago, what was it? Tuesday night, we were doing some stories on, law enforcement encounters with the paranormal, and it was really great, but we got an outstanding call in from Chad in Missouri who gave us, his Bigfoot encounter, which was really, just a fantastic encounter. It was really intense and had a great long talk with him. So I didn't get through all of those. So if you don't mind tonight, I'd like to go through some more of those because I really do think that law enforcement and healthcare workers bump into the paranormal stuff probably a lot. Of course, law enforcement officers have to go into the worst of the worst. They got to clean up the worst of the worst. They got to deal with the things that most of us don't want to. And my hat's off to them. My undying thanks to all those in law enforcement who are giving because it's something they believe in. But I like these stories because I think they see it all. They see it all, and they are trained observers, which actually I think helps with the credibility as well, because they're not probably as prone to flights of fancy or gross exaggeration of events or anything like that. They're just gonna, they're used to and trained and conditioned to report what they see to the best of their recollection, and they have to be, because what a law enforcement officer says has to stand up in a court of law. So it doesn't lend itself to exaggeration and embellishment. Usually, if it's a good police officer or law enforcement person, it won't. But of course, there's all sides of that spectrum. But then again, any line of work you get into, there are those other kind of people, and law enforcement is certainly not immune to that either. But I know that there's a lot of people taking it out pretty hard on law enforcement in current events. Now, I'm certainly not making excuses for some bad actors. I know there's some really terrible people running around with badges, but I know that there's terrible people running around in every profession. And I think it's, for the most part, there's a lot of people that really care an awful lot, are really trying to make a difference. And so I think it's important to be supportive of that, because the job they're doing is not easy. I worked in corrections for well over a decade, and that wasn't easy. And I didn't see these individuals on the street in their element. I saw them when they were already controlled. So my hat's off to law enforcement that has to go out there and deal with that. But they are trained observers. I don't mean to get sidetracked a whole bunch, but they're trained observers. So when they see something, they should be able to pretty accurately repeat that. And so that's what I think these stories are, and that's, to me, what makes them stand out, definitely as believable. So, though, let's see. I think I'm starting where I left off last time. But if I end up repeating one, I am sorry. But I think it's this one. So let me start here. It says, "This wasn't my story, but it was my dad, who was a cop for 32 years, and this was one of his craziest calls. A call goes out for a reported screaming. It's in mid-January. I don't think I read this one, but maybe I did. If I do repeat it, I'm sorry. It's mid-January, which is important later, and my father and another officer respond to find a known deranged individual, very long rap sheet, and has been in and out of psychiatric care for years, sitting on the front porch holding a double-sided wood-splitting axe. Steam is coming up off the grass, and there are chunks lying all over the grass. Oh, God." Upon interviewing the suspect, he admits that he and a friend were playing poker. The suspect was losing nearly every hand and came to the conclusion that his friend was a haint, which is Southern for a ghost, and was cheating him. The suspect grabbed the axe and chased his friend outside and cut him into dozens of pieces, thus causing the warm blood to create steam on the grass. Oh, God. My dad tells the suspect that he needs to get in the police car because it's haint-proof. He said the suspect dropped the axe and sprinted to get in the back seat while thanking them for helping him. Oh, man. Now, that's not really paranormal. That's just deranged and twisted. So I'm not sure how that one made it on the list. That's disturbing. Wow. All right, the next one. This one does sound paranormal, so I hope we're back on track here. It says, 3 years ago, our very elderly next-door neighbor died all of a sudden in her house, and they found her body 5 days later in the kitchen. Fast forward to last summer, I'm sitting in my house watching a movie, and all of a sudden, about 8 police cars come out of nowhere, sirens blaring, lights on, and most park in that empty house. Some park in my driveway, so I went outside to see what's up. A police officer went through the quick formalities and asked if I'd seen anything strange in the past 5 minutes. I replied no, and rather hesitantly asked what's going on, and he said that the police department received a call from the house, and when the operator picked up, the line went dead. I stayed at a friend's house that night. So 3 years, this house is empty, but somehow there's still a working phone line? That's pretty bizarre. All right, so the next one. I was a 911 dispatcher for just about 5 years, right out of school. One night I got a call from a lady at a residence in town. 911, what's your emergency? Is this the police? She breathed. She was freaking out. Heavy breathing, scared, shaking voice. I've taken many calls like this, and from the sound of her voice, this was not going to be a routine call. I sat up straight and my heart started to pump faster. Yes, ma'am, what's your emergency? There's someone in my house, she trailed off. Very breathy and genuine, but not loud and freaking out. Okay, are you located at... And then I gave the house address. Yes. Well, I dispatched cars to start heading to the address, and I don't give a reason just yet. Okay. Do you know who this person is? Well, no, I think it's... I know this sounds so crazy, but I think that there's a ghost in my house. She begins to sob and sounds absolutely terrified. There's noises, and I know there is a ghost right in the other room. I can hear it right now. At this time, the sergeant asked me the reason... asked me the reason for the call and why I sent him in 2 other cars without explanation. Normally, you'd send 1 car to something like that. It's suspicious activity, I told him. What activity? He demanded over the radio, which is a fair question. Sir, the caller's claiming that there's someone in the house and she believes it to be a ghost. Silence on the air for about a minute. 10-4 is all he said. And by the time he got there, the ghost was gone and the poor young lady was freaked out mess, and she kept apologizing for calling us, but it was real, she kept repeating. The officers later told me that her sincerity actually freaked them out a lot. And when they searched the house, gun drawns, even they were scared. Oh, man, that is freaky. Terrifying. All right, now let's see. This is a police officer. I'm a police officer, and one night about 8 years ago, it was pouring outside, and we got a call from an elderly woman. Seemed to be a common theme in this thread, and she called in and said that she was hearing footsteps in her house, and she thought maybe there was a ghost inside because she regularly heard the sound of someone walking upstairs, but she lived alone. We went to just check it out and make sure that everything was okay, and she stayed on the line with the 911 operator because she was frightened. And about 3 minutes after she initially called in, she said that there was actually a man standing outside in her backyard, staring at her through her sliding glass door. Petrified, the woman froze in that spot and continued to stare directly at the man. For the next minute or two, she said that he was just standing there, still as could be, staring at her. Eventually, the man slunk off, out of sight. When we arrived, about 12 minutes later, the call, 12 minutes after the first call came in, or the call first came in, rather, we went to the front door, and I remained in the foyer with the woman, and the other officer went to the backyard to see if the man was still hiding out or if there were any traces of him. Well, I spoke with her for several minutes until the other officer returned, and he said there was no trace of anyone having been in the backyard, and we set off to do a quick sweep before we left to make sure the house was all clear. In her living room, the room that has the sliding glass door, we discovered a trail of mud and footprints inside the house. I asked the woman if she had been outside at all that day or if anyone had been over to visit her, and she said no, and that she lived alone and that no one had come by to visit. The woman was very old, probably around 85, and had very poor eyesight and was hard of hearing, as elderly people can tend to be. The woman obviously had seen the man's reflection and mistakenly thought he was in front of her on the other side of the glass in her backyard. In reality, he had been standing only a few feet behind her in the same room while she had been talking to 911. Nothing was stolen, broken, or out of place, so we don't know what his intentions were. Who knows what would have happened had she not stayed on the line with the operator. I know it sounds like something out of a campfire story, but it was honestly one of the most unnerving and creepy experiences I have ever had while on duty. Jeez. Oh, that poor woman. She didn't know it was right behind her. Oh, man. Oh. Well, I guess it's better she didn't know that. It's better to think it's on the other side of the window. She's just sitting there staring at it. Huh. I'm a security patrol officer, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have the largest security beat in the Scottsdale desert, and part of my job is to respond to alarm calls in these isolated mansions throughout the Scottsdale, Cave Creek, and Carefree. One night I got an alarm at a small airport where the rich play with their airplanes, Sky Ranch Airport, and part of the airports are residential homes with built-in hangars, and that's where the alarm was tripped at 2:30 a.m. On arrival, I went through the normal alarm process, called the dispatch to make a call to the homeowners, which was vacant, so nobody should have been there. And after the call is made, I knock on the front door very aggressively just to make sure if someone is home that they'll hear me before I make entry. I walked in on the homeowners before at different houses, and anyways, as I walked toward the front door, I heard a little shuffling noise behind the door, very faint but loud enough to be noticed. That being the case, I rang the doorbell and knocked on the door longer than usual, and nothing. So then I began the perimeter check and found that the back sliding door handle was broken, but there was a little note on the inside that read, "Handle is broken," and that's signed by the realtor. The realtor paced, The realtor paced, P-A-C-E-D, a metal rod, down to keep the sliding door from opening. Well, I finished the perimeter check, called the dispatch to let them know that I was going to make entry, and the house was beautiful and everything was fine. So I wrote out my entry slip and was resetting the alarm, but a fault showed on the display that read, Zone 35, back room door. And at that very moment, my supervisor called me via radio and asked if I knew anything about the house I was in. What he told me more than anything annoyed the hell out of me. He said back in 2008, the previous homeowner committed suicide by the front door with a shotgun when the economy crashed, leaving behind a wife and 3 children. I knew he was trying to scare me, so I brushed it off and resumed my business, and I walked to the back sliding door, and long behold, the metal rod was removed, and the sliding door was open about 4 inches, which was very creepy. The house has motion sensors, including sensors on the door itself, and none of them were showing up as fault. I put the rod back into its original place and armed the system, and a few months later I had an alarm call at a different house, and this time Scottsdale police assisted me. After the call was over and done with, we stood outside the home just BSing, and I asked the police if they knew about the house in Sky Ranch Airport. One of the officers says he was one of the first police officers on the scene shortly after the homeowner killed himself out by the front door. They confirmed the suicide, and if I ever have to respond to that house again, I'll ask for backup. Yeah, and I suppose there's the long-held belief that, of course, suicide is kind of the epitome of unfinished business, and many people believe that those who do take their own lives are, perhaps going to be earthbound or stuck while they process whatever was going on that they couldn't face in life. And so, yeah, the house was vacant, but I don't think it was really vacant. I don't know. I think someone needs help crossing over. They need some help. Grandmother was a cop in Santa Maria in the late 70s till early 90s. Man calls in saying there's a 7-foot gray man at his door. She goes to check it out, and the door is jammed. The man is screaming, and she hears a loud buzzard. She slams the door open, and the buzz is gone. I guess a buzzer, not buzzard. It's spelled buzzard, like the bird. The buzz is gone, and so is the man. There's blood everywhere. She calls for backup, runs around and calls his name. She hears what sounds like someone yelling, but someone is covering their mouth, and she finds him tied up, urine everywhere. Investigators say that he was in the room for at least 4 hours. The man lives alone in the middle of nowhere, says he called the police 5 hours ago and said that a cop was on their way. He reported seeing a 7-foot gray man with big eyes who did that to him. No footprints, no trace of any kind of invasion, My grandmother lost 4 hours somewhere, somehow. The guy ended up taking his own life a few years later, leaving a note behind, warning my grandmother that they are after him and thanking her for rescuing him. This is absolutely crazy. Wow. That's a really strange one. And here's the thing. I guess if you think of these beings, I guess we got a call. I better get to this. Let me get to the call first and we'll talk about that one. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Area code 509.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. A little bit nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous, brother. It's just me and a microphone. Come on now. Welcome to the show. Who am I talking to?
Thanks. I got a Bigfoot story for you guys.
Oh, beautiful. Please share it. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So I live in Spokane Valley, Washington, over in Spokane County.
Mm-hmm.
This took place just outside of town at my friend Evan's parents' place.
Okay.
And I used his name because I will be referencing him quite a bit in the story.
Okay.
Let's see here. I wrote something down, so I'm kind of going to read from that.
Sure. Okay.
Let's see. Where Evan lived, there is a small highway that leads from the south end of our city, and goes into some really deep woods. I've never been back further on that highway than this neighborhood's road, but it looks like the forest goes on forever. The geography back there is pretty hilly, and Evan lived at the top of a large hill no more than a half a mile away from the city. Behind his house was a little valley of sorts where the bottom of two hills met. To the west, there was a highway, and to the east, it was all woods. These woods are mostly coniferous, and many of the trees are quite thick and tall, so
Mm-hmm.
they're a pretty old forest.
Oh, okay.
Okay. At Evan's parents' place, me and I can't remember how many of my friends were there. It was more than 3, maybe about 4,
Mm-hmm.
other than me and Evan. We were all drinking and smoking down on his downstairs back porch, like a pretty big deck.
Okay.
At some point, I remember holding a tumbler of whiskey. This happened 13 years ago. I was 17.
Okay.
I was standing by the back door with Evan, away from our friends on the porch. I remember someone making knocking sounds in the forest, and it sounded like it came from the hill across the valley. I can do this popping sound with my tongue. It sounds like a wood knock, so I made the knocking sound back, and here's the sound.
Oh, yeah.
I can do it really loud.
Yes,
I decided not to do it loud for you guys.
I have headphones on. That was plenty loud.
It was also a very loud. Let's see. Evan told me not to do that, and I made some joke like, "What is it, Bigfoot or something?"
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of just shut up about it and looked slightly embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
And I made some more knocking sounds, and we heard some replies. So Evan told me to stop again, and I basically wasn't going to stop, but then we heard another knock to our right, so I did. The knocking continued, and it kind of went back and forth from the first place where we heard the knocking was dead in front of us across that valley,
Uh-huh.
and the other was over to the right.
Wow.
It was a little spooky, but I mainly stopped for Evan because he was looking serious. Then we kind of blew it off, and I went back to the party. Sometime later, I was stepping out of the back door, and we heard whoops from 2 different voices coming from the woods behind his place. It was at the same spot where we had heard the wood knocking, the original wood knocking.
Uh-huh.
I remember wanting it to be a party on the hill where I had heard the first knocking come from, but as I looked, there was no fire, there was no lights, and the whooping didn't sound human. I can't really do an impression of it.
Okay.
I've been trying all day in preparation for this, but I just can't.
Uh-huh. Now, was
it was really way too loud.
So was it just a whoop, that kind of noise, but really loud, or was it lower register or higher? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was. It kind of went from a lower to a higher, but it all had this bass in it.
Oh, sure.
It would sound like it came out of a pair of real big lungs.
Sure, out of a barrel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, my friends ended up making some whooping sounds back, which caused more whooping from the hill and some crashing noises.
Ooh.
You know, like foliage being crashed.
Yeah.
And I thought that making sounds back was a bad idea, so I told my friends to stop. They did, but there was more whooping sounds that ended up coming from a different part of the same hill to the right, and then another from the original spot, which made me think that there was like two groups of people out there trying to find each other in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, it's too loud, there's just not enough light, and like it just didn't sound like people.
Right.
The whooping continued until both origins of the whooping came together, and then it stopped. I remember like looking around, and we weren't really freaked out. We kind of had that like nervous, everybody had that nervous smile on their face.
Mm-hmm.
So like we were kind of curious, but like it stopped and we waited a bit, and then we just kind of went back to what we were doing.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and then the next stage of this thing happens, and the next thing I remember is that I was standing with Evan by the back door again, and we were hearing really loud footsteps coming up the hill towards the house.
Oh, no.
I remember asking out loud what the hell that was. Evan said it was just nothing, but he had this freaked out look in his eyes, but he was like keeping a serious look on his face, trying to, you know, not look like he was freaked out.
Right.
And I was just questioning Evan so much at that point. There was just one set of footsteps at first, then another set came through from the right, and a third from the left.
Oh.
This hill that Evan's house was on was really steep and covered in brush and deadfall. And there was one large trail to our left that we used a lot, and it kind of went back into the forest and went down a ways. And then there was another smaller trail that split off from that and ran in front of this like cliff that made up the backyard of this house, the backyard of this part of the area that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about let's see here. I'd been down the larger trail like a bunch, like I said, but I never liked being out there alone. The smaller trail didn't really lead anywhere, but I used to go smoke some pot on that trail by a maple tree, and which was about like 20 to 30 feet away from the house.
Okay.
So the center pair of footsteps went to that tree and stopped. And we ended up seeing some eye shine, some like red eye shine. And I didn't know that was the maple tree until later when Evan pointed it out. But he must have been, to be that tall, to see it over the cliff's edge, he must have, like, I don't know how tall he would have been,
right,
or it would have been, but too tall, not a person at all. And you don't see eye shine off a person, at least that I know of.
Right.
Let's see.
We don't, our eyes don't reflect lights like that, so yeah.
Yeah, so the footsteps on the right stopped not far from there. It was a little higher up on the hill. And I have no idea where the third set that was off to the left ended up, but it could have been on that packed trail to the left where there wasn't deadfall to make sounds with, which was pretty creepy because you would have been, like, coming up to the house and it... Ugh. Anyway, sorry.
No worries. You're doing great.
Yeah. And something was thrown at the porch from the bottom of the cliff, and it hit the porch and then bounced back down, and it was just something light. And then I saw a pine cone plop down basically right in front of me, and I picked it up, and there's no trees on his backyard to drop them. And I picked it up, and I just thought, if something's throwing something at me, I'm going to throw it back. So I threw it back. Evan told me not to do that. And then we heard foliage shaking, and there were some strange crunching sounds. And I looked over to the top of the maple tree, and it was shaking. Like I said, I didn't know that was a maple tree, and I was like, why is it shaking that bush? And Evan's like, that's a tree. And I cussed out loud because I realized I knew like how tall something would have to be in order to reach where that tree could actually bend.
Oh man.
And then a larger tree to our right started to shake. It was a tall coniferous tree, and it shouldn't have been able to be able to be shook. And that's when Evan's like, we all got to go inside, and we just went inside and we waited, and we ended up seeing We ended up seeing some more eye shine while we were waiting inside through his back window. And I remember a vague large shape moving at like the edge of the light.
Yeah.
But like I remember we didn't drink anymore that night. We didn't smoke anymore, and we all just kind of tried to go to sleep.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that'll sober you up in a hurry. I think it's an amazing story. You know where I'm located, right?
Yeah, I just found out today while I was watching a video.
Yeah,
you're from northern Idaho.
Yeah, right up in Sandpoint. So, I've been through.
Oh, really?
Yes, through Spokane a bunch of times and Spokane Valley, but this area is crawling with them. We have a good friend who's a researcher in the area. Her name is Cindy Goodbrake, and she regularly goes out. She's around Rathdrum area, or somewhere in that area, and she's always hearing things up on the mountains near her house. I think that Evan knew, right? I mean, I'm getting the impression from what you're telling me, that he knew all along what was going on. He just didn't want to say.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only time that like some strange things happened, and he would just like take control over the situation. Like we were down in the valley one time messing around, and he had gone off ahead a little bit, and I think I was lighting a cigarette or something, and my friends were further behind. And then all of a sudden he just comes back and he's like, "We gotta go." And I'm like, "What did you see? Like a bear or something?" And he goes, "No, it was tall and hairy, and it moved behind a tree." And he just went, and his dog looked scared, and that dog was always optimistic about everything.
Took the spirit right out of it.
Yeah.
Man, that's intense. Yeah. So it got pretty close, though, it sounds like. And you did see the eye shine. You said it was red eye shine.
Yeah, it was like a reddish orange.
Okay. And that's, I don't know if there's any validity to it, but I've heard people attribute the red eye shine as a really bad sign as far as a Bigfoot eye shine. Like the golden eye shine is supposed to be okay, and I don't know if it's a different, like, I don't know, offshoot of the family that has the red versus the gold. But the gold, people when they encounter gold eye shine or yellow eye shine generally don't have really aggressive accounts. But when people see the red eye shine, it's usually a really bad sign that those could be very aggressive. And they may be the same creature, but it just might be a bad day versus a good day. Maybe it affects their eyes somehow. I don't know. But every time I hear red eye shine,
I had another.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I had another experience that kind of leads me to believe that they're not aggressive. They just are territorial, and that night we pissed them off because I took the forest home one day. Like I was just going to walk all the way home. And so I took the forest to the highway, and I felt like I was being watched the whole time. And when I got to the point where none of the houses could see me, it started freaking me out more. So I started running. I heard footsteps going with me. And like it scared me, and I would stop, and I'd hear the footsteps stop, and I'd look around, and then I'd get even more freaked out, and then I'd just start going again. And I repeated that process until I got out of the forest. But I think they gave me a little goodbye present.
Oh,
because I got nauseous really suddenly. And like I've been shocked before, so I know it didn't feel like like exactly like an electric shock.
Okay.
But it felt like a jolt of something in my belly.
Oh. No.
And yeah, I think they just wanted me because when I was 17, I was loud and obnoxious, and I was rebel against anything, and I would, so I'm pretty sure they like wanted me out of there, but they weren't hunting me or anything like that. I didn't feel hunted. I've felt hunted before, like in Yellowstone and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Well, have you heard of infrasound?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so that sounds to me like what you got zapped with the infrasound, which is allegedly a low frequency vibration. But people that have been hit by that talk about that, getting nauseous, feeling just really discombobulated, disoriented, dizzy, just lethargic. And I think there's something to that. There is something to that. The whole shadowing thing where they kind of corral people out. I think you're right. I don't think it's an aggressive thing. I just think it's an intimidation thing. They just want people to move on through, get out. And it's maybe because there's a family group nearby or too close or something, or maybe it's just their turf and they don't like people that much. But that's so common that they mirror people step for step for step, and that comes up all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it was freaky, like them running, and then I'd stop, and I'd hear a slight delay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'd hear their last footstep hit, and I turn around, and there's nothing around.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't dare look away from, like, you know, where I was running while I was running.
Sure.
But, you know, when I stopped, there was nothing around to see.
And that's not happened to me. I don't know what that feels like, but I can only imagine that's got to be about the worst feeling is to hear something big, you know, walking with you. And it looks like it sounds like in most cases it should be close enough to be able to see them. Like you should be able to just turn and there it would be, whatever it is. But to look and to see nothing it's got to be really disheartening, because it's one of those things that, you know, like when you're feeling threatened, if you can see what threatens you, that at least gives you some kind of tactical advantage over not seeing and not knowing. And I think that somehow they know that, and they know to stay hidden, and they must know that psychologically that really screws with people a lot more to hear this big thing and then not to see it ever. And it's just, they are so damn good at what they do. They really are. They're like the ninjas of the forest.
They're too intelligent.
Right.
They're too intelligent to be an animal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all animals, but
Sure.
you know what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah. They're not just just part of the normal animal kingdom. They're like people smart. But they're
yeah. You said in one video about like bears and stuff that they're slaves to their stomach.
Yeah.
These guys aren't slaves to their stomachs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Normal.
They've got time to like think and make a culture.
Mm-hmm. And they plan and they
like
scheme.
within. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you, brother. I think that, you know, they are super intelligent, you know, comparably intelligent to us, if not more so. And they have a whole different kind of intelligence because they know their home and they can move flawlessly through it, whereas we are clumsy and slow and awkward and you know, they are graceful, fast, strong, and agile, and they have every advantage. And you're right. If they were hunting you, they would have gotten you. There's really no true this side of having a firearm. Say you don't have a firearm, there is absolutely no resistance a person could offer if one of these things wanted to hurt you. I mean, they're just going to hurt you. They're going to outrun you with no problem, and they're going to outmuscle you. And you know, it just doesn't matter what you know. They are just so much more adept and physically they're off the charts. They're like superhuman kind of strong. So if they want to hurt you, they're going to hurt you.
Yeah. I don't think it's a smart idea to shoot a Sasquatch ever.
I don't either.
From the stories I've heard, it's not going to stop them, because if you're in fear, you're not going to be hit making that headshot, no matter how big his head is.
Right.
And I mean, depending on your training, obviously, but and he's probably not going to go down. But if he does, that whole family they're not going to. They're not going to take that sitting down.
Right. Well, take this for instance. Okay, there's police officers and law enforcement officers are pretty thoroughly trained with firearms, and they're required to shoot an awful lot and to be familiar with their sidearm. Now, those police officers on a range can just be absolute marksmen, but those very same people, when they're in an armed confrontation with somebody shooting back, or offering some kind of intimidation back, they can shoot 19 and 20 rounds and not hit anything. You know, so it's a whole different thing when you're in an adrenalized state. You know, you can be a crack shot on a range, but if you're in a situation where you need to scrape your underwear, you're not going to be much of a good shot. Right?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
So
I mean, I've heard about bear getting hit in the head with bullets before, and like it's still coming.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think a Bigfoot skull's got to be pretty darn thick.
Right.
for its size to be able to,
Yeah.
withstand the weight of its mass.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean,
All the bones being thick.
well, even take for instance, a deer. And a deer's not an aggressive species, but they can get lung shot and still, run for 100 or so yards. I mean, they just where a person would drop like a rag doll, these natural creatures can still, put up a chase, even though they can't breathe. There's no air happening. They're drowning, but they still just are in this adrenaline and they can go. So I imagine if something's coming at you and it's pissed, they're still going to come at you, even though they may be mortally wounded. They're just going to probably take you with them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't think trying to be aggressive towards them is a good idea. I don't think mimicking them is a good idea either. I think my knocking and my friends whooping really pissed them off.
Yeah, it's funny that it did.
I don't know if they don't like being mocked,
right.
or if they don't like disinformation.
Right, and who knows? Who knows?
They came and checked us out, and we were just a bunch of human teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows if those things have significant meanings? And there's a bunch of teenagers out there just blood, blood. It could be sacred words in their vocabulary for all we know. It's like, oh no, we really pissed them off now. So you're right.
I could have said some insult with that knock.
Right, that's my point.
You know what I mean?
Your mother wears man's underwear.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberry.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know what you're saying. So, and they do have a language as well, which is really bizarre, but, and it's really fascinating. But what was that? Was that you? Did you hear that?
Was what, me?
Did you hear a big rumble?
I heard. No, it might have been outside my window.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It could have been a rumble of a vehicle. It was like really loud. I was like, wow, what was that? Sounded like somebody was sliding a big table across the floor or something. But anyway, it was in my headphones, but I figured it was on your end. But no, man, that's really cool. And I thank you so much for calling in and sharing that with us. Now I have to ask you.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. What is that?
That was a truck just outside.
Oh, wow.
Here, let me shut my window.
No, it's
That's
fine. I just wasn't sure what I was hearing, and it was just like abrupt. But I have to ask you, have you, obviously you've done some research on this since you've had an encounter. Have you ever gone out looking for them specifically, or are you more of just a hobbyist?
To be honest, I put these experiences in some part of my head where I didn't have to remember them.
Oh,
and it wasn't until just like 3 weeks ago that I started remembering these. I've been watching a lot of Bigfoot shows and paranormal shows on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And when I was watching Impossible Visits in the pine cones, he's throwing the pine cones and then he goes to that microforest, that's where it clicked.
Ding.
Because I knew pine cones had been thrown at me and Evan.
Yeah.
But then when he was that close to a city, everything just came flooding back. Just like this. It made it possible for that to have been Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it was Bigfoot because of how close it was. I think wrote it off as
a lot of
something I just apparently didn't want to remember.
Yeah, a lot of people.
But I'm really glad I remember it now.
I think it's a great memory and it's a great experience. But I understand the intimidation, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people assume that they are out in the deep forest. They're out in the way far away from people. But these beings are everywhere.
All over the place.
Yeah, they're. But I think that they're also learning to be more close to us and still hidden. But they're learning to take advantage of our wasteful nature. So I don't think they're as afraid to come into like suburban type areas as much now. And they'll probably still retreat to a forest if there's a forest nearby. But I don't think that they're, opposed to coming into housing areas and taking fruit from trees and going through garbage and things like that. And it seems like there are more and more reports of that kind of activity coming in. So they may be even further adapting to our encroachment.
I think I think the only reason why we're hearing more reports about that stuff now is just because there's more like to be able to find about Bigfoot on the internet. Like people are able to research it and they're able to go, look, some of these stories, they may be they may be somebody making something up, but like some stories hit you and you know that these people, like they're telling the truth, like this stuff happened to them. And then that can convince people to, you know, come out and say, hey, yeah, I did see this. You know, it gives, like, every story you guys do and every other Bigfoot channel out there, or supernatural channel, is doing nothing but making us feel like we've got more confidence. Because honestly, I've got horrible anxiety problems, but it was you and your chat community and Dawn and how you guys treated the guy from Bigfoot Odyssey, Carrie.
Carrie, yeah.
I like his stuff.
Yeah.
So it convinced me to come on.
I really appreciate it. Now, I got to ask you, just as a side note, judging from, you know, that was a tree, you saw the eye shine, what would you gauge their height to have been? How big did you feel like these animals probably were, or these beings? I don't want to call them animals, but you know what I mean?
For some reason, 8 comes into my head.
8 foot, yeah.
Because I just feel like 7 still would have been. I feel like 7 still would have been too short, because it popped up just above that cliff, and it was like this, holy crap! Because where that thing drops off super steep, and where that tree is at,
yeah,
that is high. You know, I'm 5'7" and standing there, smoking by that tree right there. Like that clips over the top of my head for sure. It makes it almost, other than feeling watched, you know, it kind of felt like a little spot in like the beginning of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
It'd be interesting. It would have been interesting if I mean, does your friend still live in that area?
No, he lives out on his own. That was his parents' place, and they ended up selling the property and moving to Arizona.
Oh, okay. Because I was just, you know, if they're as what I understand, and I could be absolutely mistaken, but I think that they are like generationally in areas until they can't be any longer. And I don't know what's, you know, maybe that area is all changed now. I don't know. Maybe there isn't as much woodland and forest there as there used to be, but it would be interesting to see, you know, if there are trackways and things throughout there, you know, that area. You know, it's just, it's really neat.
I've been thinking about going back.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You still have access to that area?
That was the thing. Is if I have access to the area, because I don't know whose property's who, just public property.
Sure.
Because I assume most of what's back there is probably public property.
Sure.
Because that forest is darn big, and I'm sure there's probably some other places around here that are connected a bit. I know I got spooked by this one place that's right by the Albertsons, that's not far from Evan's house.
Oh, okay.
Or his old place.
Well, if you do go, just, you know, don't go alone and be careful. I mean, I'm certainly not trying to encourage you to go back into situations that are, you know, terrifying. I don't want that for you, but it's just really curious. I know they're in this area. I know that, you know, like if they had wanted to hurt you, they probably would have hurted you. But you know, I'm just curious about you know, all the activity going on in this area, especially since it's so close to me. You know, I'd like to get out and do field work, especially when it's so conveniently close. So if you ever think about it, you know, give me a holler. You know, if I can get in the area and go with you, I will.
Oh, that'd be great.
All right, brother. Well, I really appreciate you calling in and being part of the show. This is fantastic. It's really cool, and your encounter was absolutely amazing.
Thanks. I'm lucky to have had it.
Did you have anything else you wanted to share, or was that about it?
I think I can save it for calling in another time. I've had some other paranormal experiences in my life, a little bit more paranormal than Bigfoot.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Well, by all means, man, call
I
in
mean, unless you want
whenever.
me to share those now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. I love hearing from people more than I like to read stories. So, I mean, if you got something to share, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well, then I saw a Bigfoot back in March. I just got to check my calendar to tell you what day. I say Bigfoot, I'm going to say UFO.
Oh, okay. All right. I was wondering that because you said it was more paranormal, and then you said you
Yeah.
saw Bigfoot. Okay.
Saw UFO midnight 30 on the 23rd of March. I was outside smoking on my back porch and just smoking a cigarette and completely sober.
Okay.
And I see this light coming up from the north, moving south, right?
Okay.
And it's off. It's not moving at the right speed. It's like too slow to be an aircraft, right? Or sorry, too fast to be an aircraft. And I look down at my phone, and that's when I realize, whoa, that's too slow to be an aircraft. And I look back up, and I see it stop in midair and float. And it started changing colors. And it was like reds and blues and yellows and greens. And it did this for a while. And it wasn't sitting completely still. It was sort of meandering. And then the whole encounter felt like it maybe went on for like 7 minutes, but probably it didn't go on for that long. So, but it went on for a decent amount of time to me. And then it started, the tops of the circle started shining blue, and the bottom of it started shining blue. And because it wasn't all just one light making these blinkings, there was like multiple lights on it. Okay. So there's the two blue layers, right? And then in the center, there's this white layer. And all of a sudden, this beam shoots out towards this cloud, and this little blue ball goes right down that line. And this beam comes back. The blinking goes back to it's multicolored, not just the blue and white. And then when I talked to the guy at MUFON, he asked me if it could have zoomed away really fast. And honestly, it might have, but it kind of looked like it just sort of blinked out.
Oh, cool.
Like,
yep.
Yeah, and it was multiple miles away. Okay. And
what shape was it?
Yeah, circular.
Oh, it was circular. So it was like a sphere?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I had a UFO experience. Actually, in this area, it was the first time I ever saw a UFO, and it was about 4 years ago. And I was just happened to be looking through a pair of infrared binoculars. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or not. It's something I've covered on the show before, but I was looking at the night sky because most of the stars in our galaxy are red, and they're harder to see with the naked eye. And I was having a good time, and then I was panning around. I was out in the forest at a friend's house alone. I was up there alone in the mountains, and I got panning around on the ground level, saw the trees and stuff, panned above the trees, and floating about 30 feet above this pine tree or whatever kind of tree, I don't know my trees real well, was, no kidding, a flying saucer. It was a flying saucer. It was like the two pie plates, but in between was like these panels of light that were flashing circular, in a flashing circular pattern around the periphery of around the edge of the craft. And I was just amazed. But now let me tell you what happened is that I was looking at it for a while through the binoculars, these infrared binoculars, and I thought, I want to see this with my own eyes. So I lowered the binoculars, and there was enough ambient light out that I could still see the treetops, see the stars beyond, but there was nothing there. I put up the binoculars again. It was there. Took them down. It was not there. It was cloaked. I could not see it in the normal light spectrum that my eyes observed. I could only see it in the infrared spectrum because of those binoculars. So when you say it poofed, it makes me think, well, maybe it shifted. It just shifted to more of a cloak. So that's a true story. And I put it on everything that I love, that's absolutely true and real. And it's what, and when I got, as soon as I had that experience, I was using my friend's binoculars. They were his. I went home and on Amazon found the same ones and ordered them. and I've been looking at the sky ever since and seeing lots of weird things up there. But that's exactly what happened. So I wonder if when it clicked and was just gone, if it just, realized you were watching, or maybe it was able to tell, I don't know, and just wanted to hide.
I hope it didn't know that I was watching it. Well, I hope they didn't know.
Yeah, well, I hear you.
Might have been more than one in that craft.
Yeah,
but
depending on
that's
a true story though. So, and when I hear people talk about that, well, it just boom, it was gone, and I think, no, it was probably still right there. It's just you couldn't see it any longer.
Yeah, it's almost like somebody at the controls was just like, "Oh no, we are uncloaked."
Yeah, exactly.
Like there was just a mistake that you can see them and with your naked eye.
Right, exactly. So whether or not people can believe that or not, I guess is up to them. It doesn't, which isn't really important to me. But I know it was a real experience. It happened.
Yeah.
I saw it, and yeah, I think that's really profound. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think of it like we've got some backup. We've got a little bit more backup than we used to about this sort of stuff because,
sure.
Like, not only has the French government and other governments come out saying that they have been investigating UFOs and possibly USOs, but our own government has come out and said it, like the Pentagon. And
Sure.
I'm surprised that I was really surprised when that didn't cause more of a reaction.
Yeah.
More of a reaction that I could see, it caused it's probably might be one of the reasons why there's so many people liking that one thing to go storm Area 51.
Yeah, I know what a mess that'll be if that happens. Yeah, I don't know. I think people did notice and did take mention. I know that I saw a whole bunch of mentions about it online, so people are actually taking notice of that and going, hey, this is really encouraging. It looks like we might be moving a little bit towards disclosure, and maybe we are, but the one thing I will tell you, and I'm sure this is no news to you as well, but I think people are fickle. Most people are fickle, and our media is set up to just bombard us, and so it's easy to lose track of things because the next day there's something else sensational and something else you should be afraid of or something else you should be angry at, and so people's emotions are being played like like a flute, and people just
it doesn't leave any time for the big questions.
Right, exactly. But I think there's enough of us out there that are asking the big questions and hanging on to this and hopefully continuing to apply the pressure, and hopefully we will move towards more of an official disclosure. That would certainly be nice because a lot of people work awful hard to, in all areas of the paranormal and supernatural to, try to bring these things to light. And, after generations of being mocked, it's, it'd probably feel good for a lot of people to go, I told you. Yeah, we were telling you all along. It was out there. So, yeah, that's really cool, man. That's very cool.
Yep.
Well, I is there anything more?
Well, there is that I forgot about that. My parents didn't want to make a report to MUFON based off of what we saw together, and it was the Saturday after. Was the Saturday after that? I saw that UAV, the UFO, and my parents were outside smoking, and I was inside doing something. And my mom's just like, "There's some strange light out there." And I came out and looked at it, and it was kind of weird. And then I was like, "Oh, maybe not." And I went back inside, and then my mom was like, "No, you got to come out and see this." Like a few minutes later, and I'm like, "Is the same lights up there?" And I go look up there, and there's like planes flying around it. You can see you could see lights flying around it, and they look like they were planes, because they're moving how a plane does, and moving at like the speed a plane normally does. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't really flashing colors. It was just like this pale, like off-white,
right,
looking color.
Wow.
And it was the longer I looked at it, the more like kind of did the same like a little bit of meandering in the sky that the previous UFO did. And I wish I saw more of that, but like I went inside to go. I think I went to go grab my phone or something to see if I could maybe get it on camera,
Sure.
even though it was pretty dark and my phone probably is not going to get it. But by the time I got out there, it was just gone.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what's going on in this area, because there seems to be, again, I had my first and most profound experience witnessing a UFO. And I've heard from lots of locals that have witnessed UFOs in the area as well. I don't know what's going on up here, but apparently there's something going on in this area that these visitors find pretty intriguing.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be.
Right.
I mean, we do have a military base out here,
Where is that, by the way?
Air Child Affair. It's just outside of Spokane in a place called Airway Heights. It's just to the west of us.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't remember if it has nuclear capabilities or not, but I do know my parents, I'm a military family. My parents basically told me, though, that one time, if America would be invaded, Fairchild would be one of the first things hit on the West Coast because of what we can put out from there.
Oh, okay.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what they're doing over there? I mean, it's not the biggest base in the world. I mean, I've been on it a bunch of times to go to the doctor as a kid.
Oh, okay.
But they've got a lot of aviation stuff out there. Because it's an Air Force base.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask what kind of base it was, but okay. And you know what? Now that you mentioned that, I think I have heard that before, that Airway Heights location. Yeah. I guess, this is a pretty hopping area, though. So who knows? But maybe someday we'll learn the truth about all this stuff, brother.
One day.
One day.
Hopefully within my lifetime.
I hear you. But thanks so much for calling in, man. It's great you did. I'm glad you got over your nervousness and took the plunge, and I sure hope you'll call in again.
Yeah, I will. I gotta do some more accepting about some things that happened in Kansas, and then I think I'd be ready to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. By the way, we do have some resources in that regard, too. If you've been through some stressful things with, with especially the supernatural, paranormal stuff, we have a lady that works with people, helping them to process a lot of really terrifying events and PTSD. And she has offered her services pro bono to people that, call into the show and want some assistance. So if that sounds like something you might want to explore, just give me an email at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I'll get you in touch with her.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, brother.
I think I'll probably take you up on that.
All right, sounds great. I'll be looking for your email.
Yeah, good
then.
show.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much. By the way, how'd you find the show?
I found it through Bigfoot Odyssey.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, he said he was going to be on the show, and he was going to say something that he never said before, so I hopped on.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it was a great show, and Kerry's a great guy. So, but thank you, brother. I'm glad you found us, and thanks so much for being a part of this show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, you have a great night.
You too. Bye.
That's really cool. I love hearing from you guys. You guys make me complete. It's past an hour. Again, we start out with a few ghost stories and paranormal stories, and boom, we get a great call. So this is a good trend. I'm liking this, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a situation of your own that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you on the show, either by phone, or if you'd rather, feel free to email in your stories, because we love getting in touch with you guys. It's just awesome. So anyway, I guess that's gonna about wrap it up. That's all about all the gas I got in the tank. But thank you all for being here, being a part of the shows, and thank you for all that you do to spread the word about the portal. Check out the portal gear. The link is in the description. It's a Teespring site. If you want some of the sexy stuff that we make, it's available. But email your stories in paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I'll be back tomorrow night with the 2-hour show on Friday night. It'll be a network show, so if you're new to the show and not familiar with it, on Friday, Saturdays, we are attached to the network, Truth Frequency Radio Network. And we do have to take breaks every half hour because, even though we do a live simulcast here on YouTube, I don't want to rebroadcast the commercials from the network. So I do little video segments if you haven't seen them before, but hope you'll find that entertaining all the same, rather. But I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Sweet dreams.